Hello and welcome to DYF Investing's Level 1 instructional videos. In this first video of the Level 1 series, we go over some pretty compelling reasons to invest and why starting right now is in your best interest. To do this, let's start with your money. According to a Lending Club survey conducted in May of 2022, an estimated 61% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, meaning that over half of us are spending as much as we make. Would it surprise you to know that almost half of those also make over $100,000 a year? So we're not talking about people just living in poverty, we're talking about the middle class. Spending the majority of what you make each month creates problems. Without any savings or financial cushion, every extra expense becomes an emergency. Unexpected things like needing new tires for the car or replacing the air conditioner can cripple us if we don't have extra money. Even expenses we know are coming, like Christmas or just wanting a new pair of jeans, causes a lot of stress because we don't have a way to pay for them. To manage, we tend to rack up high credit card debt and might spend a lot of sleepless nights worrying about it all. And then, of course, are the long-term needs, mainly retirement. You might be thinking that you're too young or you don't make enough money to worry about retirement right now, but you feel confident that eventually you'll start saving. Behaviorally speaking, studies show that if you're used to spending everything you make now, you're very likely to continue that pattern in the future. Without extra money in savings, how do you plan to pay for a new car or a new computer when the one you've got dies? Because eventually it will. And what would happen if you lost your job? Could you go even 2 to 3 weeks with no income? The COVID pandemic proved to a great many Americans they were not financially stable enough to survive even a short period of time without a lot of outside assistance. There's thousands of things that come up that leave us anxious and worried about money. Then compound that stress by thinking about retirement. Even if you're only 18 right now, you need to ask yourself, how long do you want to work? Once you stop working, where will your money come from? Do you plan to just live off of your kids or Social Security? Maybe you think you'll win the lottery someday. These are options, but they're pretty limiting, and no, planning to win the lottery is not a retirement strategy. If you're like most Americans, 60% in fact, you don't have a strategy, but instead just this vague belief that things will somehow work out, that eventually things will change and magically you'll have enough money when retirement comes along. Or maybe you have thought about it and plan to put some money away into a savings account on a regular basis. Seems like a smart thing to do, and for short-term needs like tires or a vacation, it is. But long-term, for something like college or retirement, it's a terrible strategy, primarily for one reason: inflation. It's the idea that the exact same product is going to cost more and more in the future. For example, in 1990, a gallon of milk cost about $1.18. Fast forward 30 years to the end of 2022, and that same gallon of milk cost on average $4.44. Another way to look at it is that spending $1.18 in 1990 would get you a whole gallon of milk. Today, that same amount of money would only get you about 25%. So when we look at that savings account, let's say you plan to put $1,000 a year into a standard savings account with someone like Bank of America, who offers about 0.04% in interest. If you saved $1,000 a year for 30 years, at 0.04% interest, you'd have $31,070 at the end of that 30 years, earning only a little over $1,000 in interest. That's really not that much. But at least you've got money in savings, right? Well, let's look at what you can buy with $31,000 today. A basic Ford Mustang, perhaps. Not too bad. Going back to the milk example, the average rate of inflation for the past 30 years is 3.8%. So even though $31,000 will buy this whole car today, if inflation continues at 3.8%, 30 years from now, you'll only be able to get about a third of the same car. If you want the whole car in 2053, it's probably going to cost about $95,000. So whatever you make each year today, in 30 years, that number is not going to give you the same quality of life you have now, but just a fraction of it. If you need $100,000 to live on today, you'll probably need about $300,000 in 30 years to live the same lifestyle. So it's vitally important that the money you save has the ability to grow at least as fast as inflation, so you can still afford to live this life in the future. And this is why we want to teach you about investing. Over the past 100 years, investing in the stock market has proven to be one of the most consistent and profitable long-term strategies out there, growing money for people at much higher rates than the pitiful savings account example we gave. And it's consistently grown money at a rate that is higher than inflation. If inflation averages about 3.8% per year, but your money could earn 10% a year, which is a completely reasonable expectation in many cases, in 30 years, that $30,000 could grow to $181,000. Quite a big difference from the savings account, with you saving the exact same amount each year in both cases. Now keep in mind that inflation does vary from year to year, decade to decade, so the scenario I gave is just an example. But hopefully it helps you see why you need to invest in something. You actually do have a lot of investing options, and we'll go over them in a future video. We know it feels complicated and overwhelming, but when it comes to your future, just putting money into a savings account or just hoping it'll all work out can lead to devastating financial needs in the future. But planning for retirement is not the only reason to consider investing. Some other reasons could include things like you've got a lot of debt that you want to pay off, student loans, credit card debt, cars, other personal loans, and almost no savings. You want to pay cash for large future purchases like a house or a car or college tuition. Maybe you've inherited a lot of money and you want to do something smart with it before you spend it all. Maybe you know you want to create an investment portfolio but don't know how or feel overwhelmed by the process. Or you're already investing through something like a 401k or a mutual fund, but you want to play around with a little bit on the side. Or you want to ditch the fund manager altogether because you're tired of paying all the high fees. There's lots of reasons to invest, but it basically comes down to this. Unless you're already independently wealthy with more money than you could spend in a lifetime, you're going to need money in the future. Every single one of us will. And contrary to what many think, investing in the stock market is one of the most stable and consistent ways of securing money for your future. Even a basic strategy like a 401k through your employer is way better than just a savings account. But we think you can do a lot better than a 401k. We're breaking this down step by step so that regardless of your age, level of education, or current income, you can do this. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you in the next video. Let's do this together.